I never thought 3 days could destroy everything I'd built in 10 years. 3 days? That's all it took for my entire life to come undone. If you've ever trusted someone so completely that you stopped watching for the cracks, you'll understand how fast a perfect world can shatter. Before I dive in, if you're listening right now, take a second to hit like, share, and subscribe. It helps more people hear real stories like mine, and maybe it'll stop someone else from ignoring the signs I missed. Anyway, I'm Mark Dalton. I was married to a woman named Lauren, smart, funny, and the kind of person who could fill a room just by walking into it. For 7 years, she was my everything. We'd built a small home in Denver, adopted a golden retriever named Cooper, and spent Sunday mornings laughing over burnt pancakes. If you'd asked me last week whether I trusted her with my life, I would have said absolutely. But that was before day one. It started on a Wednesday morning. I woke up and found Lauren already dressed, hair perfect, perfume on, even though she worked remotely. She said she had a client brunch downtown, no big deal, but she was anxious, checking her phone like it might explode. When she left, Cooper whined at the door. Dogs sense things we don't. Around noon, I texted her. No reply. At 2, I called, straight to voicemail. By evening, she came home with a smile too wide to be real. I asked how brunch went. She said, good, just business stuff. Then she showered immediately and tossed her clothes in the washer before dinner. I remember thinking, that's weird. She never does laundry midweek. That night, I couldn't sleep. My gut was heavy, my mind racing. I told myself I was being paranoid. I even opened Reddit, scrolling through r/relationship advice posts to distract myself. Funny how I'd become the kind of guy reading those threads, not realizing I'd soon be writing one. Day 2. Lauren said she was meeting her friend Chloe for a girls' dinner. I offered to drive her. She said no, too far out of the way. Half an hour later, I realized she'd left her iPad charging on the kitchen counter. A notification popped up. Jake, my best friend, had messaged me a meme. When I swiped it away, another banner appeared. You have a new photo from Eric. Eric. The name hit like static. I didn't know any Eric in her work circle. The preview showed just enough. A blurry shot of what looked like a dinner table, 2 wine glasses, Lauren's bracelet glinting in the corner. I told myself I wouldn't snoop, but temptation is a quiet, powerful thing. I opened the iPad. The screen unlocked with her thumbprint stored. There it was. Messages, timestamps, heart emojis, a few inside jokes. Nothing graphic, but enough to make my chest cave in. I remember pacing the living room, trying to convince myself there was some innocent explanation. Maybe it was a client. Maybe Eric was short for Erica. But the more I scrolled, the clearer it became. The tone, the small confessions, the way she wrote, I wish I could see you again tomorrow. Tomorrow? That was Thursday. Day 3. That morning, I acted normal. Made her coffee, kissed her forehead, told her I'd be working late. My hands shook so hard I almost spilled the mug. She smiled, oblivious, or pretending to be. After she left, I called Jake. I told him everything. He didn't speak for a full 10 seconds. Then he said quietly, Mark, you sure you want to know the truth? I said, I already do. He offered to follow her that evening, just to confirm. I didn't want to involve anyone, but I was too broken to think straight, so I agreed. That evening stretched like years. I sat in my truck outside our house, engine off, fingers tapping the steering wheel. At 7, my phone buzzed. It was Jake. His voice was low, heavy. Mark, she's not with Chloe. She's at the Bellevue Hotel, room 214, with him. I don't remember driving there. I just remember the sound of my heartbeat, the way my vision tunneled. When I reached the lobby, I froze. What was I going to do? Burst in? Make a scene? The man I used to be would never. The man standing there didn't even know who he was anymore. I waited in my truck, watching the lobby doors. 10 minutes passed, 20. Then she appeared, laughing, hair tangled, holding her phone like she'd won the lottery. And next to her was Eric, tall, easy smile, hand brushing her shoulder like it belonged there. That was the moment everything inside me went quiet. Not rage, Not sadness, just silence. I drove home before she did. I didn't even confront her that night. I just sat in the dark living room, Cooper's head on my knee, the clock ticking loud enough to feel like a countdown. When Lauren finally walked in, she looked surprised to see me awake. She asked, "You okay?" I said, "Yeah, just thinking." She kissed my cheek, said goodnight, and went upstairs. I stared at the staircase long after she disappeared. 3 days ago, I had a wife I trusted. Now, I had a stranger sleeping in my bed. And I already knew what I had to do next.
I didn't sleep that night. The clock hit 3 a.m., and the house felt heavier than I'd ever known it could. Cooper lay beside the couch, his breathing slow and steady, like he couldn't feel the storm sitting inside me. I kept staring at the ceiling, trying to understand how the woman I'd shared a life with could lie so easily. By sunrise, something inside me had hardened. I knew I couldn't pretend anymore, but I also knew shouting or breaking things wouldn't give me what I needed. I wanted the truth, in her own words. When Lauren came downstairs that morning, she looked tired, maybe even nervous. "You're up early," she said, half smiling. "Yeah," I answered. "Didn't sleep much." She poured herself coffee, scrolling her phone like nothing had changed. Every casual movement made me wonder how long she'd been acting. I waited until she turned to rinse her cup, then said, "How's Chloe?" She froze for half a second, so quick most people would have missed it. "She's good," she said. "Why?" "No reason," I lied. "Just wondered if she mentioned the Bellevue Hotel." The sound of the cup hitting the counter was louder than it should have been. She turned slowly, her eyes searching mine. "What are you talking about?" "I think you know." For a moment, we both stood there in silence, the kind that screams louder than any argument. Then she exhaled, shoulders collapsing, and whispered, "Who told you?" That question told me everything. She didn't deny it. She didn't ask, "What do you mean?" She just wanted to know who broke the illusion. I told her it didn't matter. She sat down at the kitchen table, hands shaking. "Mark, it wasn't supposed to happen. I was confused. It's not what you think." I almost laughed at that, the line everyone says when they have no other defense. "Then tell me what it is, Lauren, because from where I'm standing, it looks like my wife's been lying to me for weeks." Tears filled her eyes, but I felt nothing. I'd spent them all the night before. She started talking about loneliness, about how she felt unseen, how Eric made her feel alive. Each word felt like a pin in my chest, tiny and precise. I asked, "So what was I, Lauren? Dead?" She didn't answer. I stood up, walked to the window, and watched the sun rising over the neighborhood. The same sunrise that had meant peace to me for years now looked like a warning. "I'm leaving for a few days," I said quietly. "You'll have time to think about what you've done." She reached for me, but I stepped back. "Don't, please, Mark. I made a mistake." "A mistake," I repeated. "You don't trip and fall into someone's hotel room, Lauren." Her sobs followed me as I went upstairs to pack a bag. Cooper padded after me, tail low, as if he knew the house wasn't home anymore. Before I left, I placed my wedding ring on the kitchen table beside her phone. 3 days, I said softly. That's how long it took for me to lose everything. Remember that. I drove to Jake's place on the edge of town. When he opened the door, he didn't say a word, just handed me a cup of coffee and let me sit in silence. Hours passed before I could speak. "She admitted it," I finally said. "Said she was confused." Jake shook his head. "You going to take her back?" "I don't know," I answered honestly. "Part of me wants to disappear. Another part wants her to feel what I'm feeling right now." He looked at me carefully. "Revenge doesn't fix what's broken, man." "I'm not looking to fix it," I said. "I just want her to understand the weight of what she did." That night, I opened my laptop and typed for the first time since this started. The words came raw, unedited. I wrote everything. The lies, the messages, the hotel. I didn't use her real name, but I posted it to Reddit under r/true off my chest. I didn't expect anyone to care, but within hours, hundreds of comments appeared. Some told me to move on, others shared their own heartbreak, a few said, "Don't go back." Reading them felt strange, comforting, and humiliating at the same time. Then I saw one comment that hit different. It read, "The hardest part of betrayal isn't losing them, it's losing the version of yourself that believed they never could." That line stuck in my head for days. By the weekend, Lauren started texting me constantly. "Please come home. We can talk. I'll do anything." But I couldn't answer. The silence was the only power I had left. On the third night away, I parked outside our house, lights off. Through the window, I saw her sitting on the couch, staring at the front door. She looked small, hollow, like she'd been crying for hours. For a moment, I almost went inside, but then I remembered her laughter outside that hotel. And something colder replaced the ache. I decided that my revenge wouldn't be loud. It would be the emptiness I left behind, the quiet she'd have to live with every morning when she woke up alone. Still, when I finally drove away, I caught my reflection in the rearview mirror. My eyes didn't look angry, just tired. That's when it hit me. Revenge doesn't heal. It just passes the pain around. But I wasn't.
The days after I left blurred together. I stayed with Jake, sleeping on his couch, pretending I was fine. But the truth was, I wasn't angry anymore. I was hollow. When you build your whole life around someone, and that person breaks it, what's left isn't rage. It's quiet. Too quiet. Lauren kept trying to reach me. Calls, messages, even an email with the subject line, "Please just talk to me." I never answered. I told myself silence was the revenge she deserved, but it felt less like victory and more like suffocating in my own pride. On the 5th day, I drove back to the house to grab the rest of my things. I figured she'd be at work, but her car was in the driveway. When I opened the door, she was sitting on the floor beside Cooper, his head in her lap. She looked up, startled, then just whispered, "You came back." "I'm here to get my stuff," I said. She nodded, wiping her eyes. "I know, Mark, please, I'm sorry." I didn't reply. I packed in silence for a few minutes until she said, "You posted about me, didn't you?" That stopped me. "What?" She pointed to her phone. "Someone sent me the Reddit thread. I knew it was you. The details, no one else could have written it." My stomach twisted. "Yeah," I said finally. "I wrote it. I needed to get it out somehow." She nodded slowly. "It hurt to read, but I get it. I earned that pain." There was no defense in her voice this time, no excuses, just exhaustion. For the first time, she looked human again, not like the stranger who'd lied to me. "Why, Lauren?" I asked. "We were good. I wasn't perfect, but we were happy. What happened?" She took a long breath. "I got lost, Mark. I started believing the life we built wasn't enough, that I was missing something. And then Eric came along, said all the right things. I thought it was excitement, but it was just escape." She looked at the floor. "When you found out, I realized what I'd thrown away. I ruined the only steady thing in my life." I wanted to hate her, but the hatred wouldn't come. Maybe because seeing her cry reminded me that she was still the woman who once held me through my father's funeral, who painted the living room wall 3 times until I liked the color. People don't become villains overnight. They just make one terrible choice. "I don't know what you want me to say," I murmured. "Nothing," she said. "I just needed you to know I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm asking you to heal." That line hit harder than any excuse could have. For a moment, the silence between us wasn't heavy. It was almost peaceful. I leashed Cooper and opened the front door. The morning light spilled in, washing over the framed photos on the wall. Our wedding, the trip to Oregon, the first day we brought Cooper home. Little ghosts of a life that used to be real. Lauren stepped closer. "Will you ever come back?" I shook my head. "I don't think so. Some things don't rebuild, they just fade." Tears slid down her face.
Then at least promise you'll be okay. I will, I said quietly, but not today. I left the ring where it had been all along, still lying on the kitchen table, cold and waiting. I'd thought revenge would give me peace, but all it gave me was distance. And yet, somehow, that distance was what I needed most. Driving away, I felt lighter, not happy, not whole, but ready. Ready to stop replaying the betrayal and start learning how to live with it. Cooper leaned against my arm, the only constant left. Later that night, I opened Reddit again and edited my post. I added one final line. If you ever think revenge will make you feel better, remember this. It only delays the healing. Let go before the anger becomes your home. The comment section filled fast, strangers thanking me for the update, telling me to stay strong. For the first time in days, I smiled. Maybe my pain had a purpose after all. Before closing my laptop, I whispered to the empty room. Goodbye, Lauren. No hate, no shouting, just truth. 3 days to lose everything. A lifetime to rebuild.